Emma Swan, welcome to the Earthly Delights podcast. Long time in the waiting. What's the crack?
I don't know how to. I don't know how to
How are
answer
you?
that.
What's up? What's up with you? What's been going on these past few days?
Yeah, well, like I was saying before, I'm off work at the minute, so I'm just trying to keep busy, seeing friends. Obviously, now that we can do stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm chilling today because it's been a busy week.
Had to calm down after all your festival activities.
Yeah, basically.
Taking a year off, now you need to get back into the groove of things. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Not used to it.
For people who obviously a lot of people who'll be listening to this do obviously know about you and Tom's story and your relationship. But I'm sure there's going to be a few people who are listening in who don't know that, for example, I recorded a podcast with Tom. And for those people who don't know, I would go back and listen to that one. It's with Tom Swan. Go back and listen to that and then come back and play this one, just to give you a bit of context. But for those people who may be a bit impatient and they just want to hear you talk, why is it that I'm interviewing today? What's your relationship with Tom? And just give a bit about yourself.
Yeah. So should I just briefly tell?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a massive, long story.
Yeah, we'll get into the massive, long story.
Yeah. Well, it's just obviously me and Tom had been together since we were about 15, so 9 years. And a few years ago, when we were 21, he was diagnosed with a brain tumour, a slow-growing brain tumour, and was given an sort of average prognosis of about 10 years, and he had surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, but then just under 3 years later, so this time last year, was told that it was active again, it was growing again, and it was fast growing this time. So it was aggressive, and tried more chemo, tried loads of things, but obviously he passed away in November, so that was 4 months after we found out it was growing again. So that's what I mean by it being really aggressive. So He passed away in November, so he was 24.
Mm-hmm. So, like you said, it is a real long story, but to take it all the way back, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but when I recorded the podcast with Tom, he said that, he was, before obviously he got the diagnosis or anything, he was just suffering with headaches and stuff, and his arm was kind of hurt or go a bit not limp, but just it is a bit just not normal, let's say. But he was doing the typical blokey thing, which is just to shrug it off and it's nothing, it is what it is. It'll get better, blah blah blah. And you were actually the one who kind of forced him to go to the doctors and get it checked out. When that happened and when he got it all checked out and they came back with a diagnosis that it was a slow growing cancer and a tumor in the brain, how did that make you feel? What was your reaction to that?
So what you were saying about he was actually having seizures and we didn't know because they were so small.
Right.
And I remember I would be messaging Tom's mum about it because he'd tell me I've had 10 today, and I'd message her and we'd be like, what should we do? And it was me and Tom's mum who would make him go to A&E and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually went twice. So the first time he went to A&E, nothing really happened because it was really, really hard for him to describe to the doctors what he was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
We just called them episodes because we didn't really know what they were.
Right.
So nothing happened, but then they were getting more frequent. So then one night, I think I was at uni, and he went in with his mum, and they decided to do a CT scan, because like you said, some of the symptoms was a feeling in one of his arms.
Yeah.
And, when something's on one side of the body, that's when they start thinking, maybe it's neurological.
Mm-hmm.
So his mum called me because I think he was just obviously shocked and couldn't really speak, and she just said they've found something in his brain, and we didn't really know what. I think they called it a lesion, but none of us knew what a lesion was. So she just said they found something in his brain, and I was like, okay. And then this was 1 a.m, and then And then I was just like, I don't know, I think I was just shocked. And then I hung up and then I rang my dad.
Yeah.
And he answered, and I was just like, you know, and it like all comes out.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was just like crying, like hysterically. And he was like, I can't understand you. Like, you need to come out.
Yeah.
And then I don't really know why I rang my dad. I think you just did, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just like, you kind of like just look to your parents
Yeah.
when something like that happens. But then I just got like the first train home in the morning and went to see him in hospital. And I think we were, for like that first week, I still didn't really know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was a bit like in denial, like, oh, it's probably not a tumour, but then looking back, like, what else would it have been?
Right, yeah.
But then I'm not even sure when we got like the confirmation, like it's definitely a brain tumour, but I think I just wanted to think like it wouldn't be. But then when we realised it was, then my thing was like, oh, well, they'll just get rid of it. They'll just like remove it.
Right.
But then like it's not really that easy.
Yeah.
It's not really that simple with it being the brain.
Was that in your mind, like, oh, they'll just get rid of it, like that kind of thought process? Was that you being uber positive, or was that you being slightly in denial? Because I feel when like people get these types of like diagnosis and they get told that they have cancer, whether it's in the brain or anywhere else in the body, I feel like there's always kind of like two camps of people. There's always like the person who's like, oh, like that's it, like this is basically a death sentence, and that they just accept that from the get-go, even if they might have a good chance of surviving or getting over it. People just kind of see cancer and they just think death sentence. And then there's other people who, no matter what the doctor tells them, they always want to fight on, and they always like a real positive, and no, we can do this and we can get over this. Like, where did you kind of fall in those two camps?
At the beginning, I was definitely like the second one, like the positive one.
Right.
But looking back, that probably was like me being in denial.
Right.
Like just trying to like find any little positive in what they would say.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, when they'd say something like, if they'd say, you know, like when they said about the prognosis, I'd be like Googling, trying to find stories of people who would live longer than that.
Yeah.
Like just trying to, like, wanting to believe, like almost like not believe them.
Yeah.
Not believe the doctors.
Yeah. And obviously, you know, you've been together since you were 15, and Louisa and I have been together since like we were 17. So I always felt like we kind of had kind of similar relationships in the sense of, I know what it's like to grow up with that same girlfriend all through basically your childhood and through university, and then obviously out of university, and, you know, you grow up together.
Yeah.
And like, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can kind of assume that you guys would have already basically had it planned out that like after uni you'll move in together wherever that may be, and then, you know, a wedding and kids would be shortly after that. There's kind of, you're so set in your ways and so stable, it's not really a question of if rather than when. So with that said, how does that, when you've got all these plans with this person and they're, well, you know, they're kind of put in place, and probably not just yourselves, but both your families are probably thinking it as well, and all your friends are thinking the same thing. Oh yeah, Emma and Tom are definitely going to like live till they're 80 years old, and that's just going to be them from 15 to 18, the love story that we all want type thing. How does that, when you get told that then, he's got a cancer, and that the prognosis is basically 10 years, and that's being positive, it could be less, and so on and so forth. Like, what does that do to your dreams? Do you automatically think, that like this is over, or how do you or do you think let's get it all in before the time is over? Like, what?
I think that's something I struggled with massively, was like, because I've always been that person that like would think about the future, and I, like you said, I did think we had it all planned out, like that because we were just about, like, he'd finished uni, I was just about to finish uni, we were like going to move in together, and then obviously I just assumed that we'd do all the other bits after that. And I remember saying to my counsellor, like, I just feel like I just can't like, you know, when you like picture the future, I just was saying, like, I just can't see anything anymore, like it's literally just like a blur, like, because I don't know. And I really struggled with that, because I'm like such a planner, but I'm loads better now. Like, I literally don't even think about the future at all. Like, people will be like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm just like, well, what's the point in like trying to plan, because you don't know like what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't happen, what you want to happen, when it doesn't happen, you feel like you've like failed. So I feel like, I don't know, you can get a bit caught up in trying to think like you've got your life planned out.
Yeah.
And what you said about, do you try and fit it all in and stuff, like I think we did have conversations about that. It is so hard because we were like, we didn't want to live like he was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But then we also didn't want to like miss out on anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for a while we were just desperate to like go back to normal.
Right.
Like, he was having all his treatment, and then I think we just wanted to be normal. Like, we still moved in together because we'd planned to do that, but we didn't want to like rush the other things.
Yeah.
But then obviously we kind of did, because when we found out that the tumour was progressing, we did get married, which is, it's such a like, I'm so happy we did it, but it is a shame like how it happened, because we had talked about that for a long time prior, before we even knew the tumour had progressed. And he'd said to me the Christmas before, so like December 2019, he was like, I'm going to propose next year. But then obviously in the July, that was when we found out.
Right.
And then once we did find out, we did discuss like, should we like try and have a child?
Yeah.
And we like, I don't know if this was just like panic, but we nearly did go for like IVF, but then we were just like, it was causing like too much stress, because we knew that he was about to have more treatment, and like we didn't know if it was going to work.
Yeah.
And we just, to be fair, like he was so good about it. He was just like, he was kind of like, it's up to you. And I was like, well, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But like, he was just nice about it, like not wanting to make me feel one way or the other. But we decided not to, and I think I am glad, because we just didn't need like that extra stress at the time.
Yeah.
And then like, sorry, I feel like I'm rambling.
No,
but,
go on.
I did always used to worry as well that if Tom died and we'd like not had children like we always wanted to, I'd worry that would be like my biggest regret. But like, looking back, I'm actually glad that we just got the time together.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the best thing for us.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, when I did the recording with Tom, that was just kind of after like his first diagnosis, and he'd kind of gone through a lot of the chemo and stuff, and he was feeling a lot better about the situation, about himself, and feeling very positive. And then I remember like a few months after that podcast came out, I kind of heard through the grapevine that, like Tom's kind of had a bad, like you said, it's got more aggressive and this, that, and the other. And I remember like we would, like the boys were talking, like his friends, and we were like, just, do you know what I mean? Like, how should we reach out to Tom about it? Like, we don't want it to make out like everyone's gossiping, but we want to know that we're there for him, and yada, yada, yada. And I remember like the conversation did get onto you, and we were like, and I was saying to the guys, I was like, I don't know. I was like, it must be such a head fuck, this whole situation, because these guys, because I was just putting it in my mind, like I said, me and Louise, I feel like we have a similar relationship to you guys. And I was thinking, if this was turned around and it was flipped on me and Louisa, like you said, you've got these plans, we're going to get married, we're going to have kids, we're going to live here, and yada, yada, yada. And now you're getting told that like deadline to do all of those things getting pushed all the way back, forward, sorry. And it's like, fuck, like what do they do? Do they have a kid? Because they always wanted to have a kid, but then Tom's going to leave her as not only a widow but also a single mother, and like I know she'll have family to rally around her and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, she will be a single mother, and like I'm sure this was not even in your thinking, but that could also affect her going forwards in terms of like partners and future stuff, because there are people who are like, they want a clean slate, they don't want any anything else. And I was like, fuck, that must be such a hard decision. Like, what do? Do you just sack off work and go traveling for the next year? And then I was like, I was like, and Tom can make all these decisions, but Emma's got to like live with the consequences of whatever decisions are made. Like once he's gone, she has to live with all of those decisions. And I was like, I just can't imagine, the state of mind that you guys would have been in.
And he like fully acknowledged that as well, and was really understanding about that, and that's why he never like pressured anything. But you know how you're saying about like being a single mother or like future, like none of that really bothered me that much. The main reason was just like I really wanted to, like, because the doctor was like, if you do this, like, it's like a really grueling thing and it's stressful, and then if you get pregnant, like, you'll be pregnant, and like I wanted to look after him.
Yeah.
I think we just decided like we needed to focus on him and his health. And it was the right thing to do, because I couldn't imagine, like, because the way things went and how poorly he got, I couldn't imagine like me being pregnant or something at that time. Like, it just wouldn't have worked. And I think it was the right thing.
And what was the thought process in getting married? Because like I know it's a substantial step in terms of, it's the next thing, it's the next logical step when you've been in a relationship for so long. But like someone could argue, well, they've been together for 9 years anyway. Like what real difference does it make? I know you're now Emma Swan instead of Emma Soden, but like what actual difference does it make in terms of their relationship? They're still exactly the same. They still have the exact same feelings for each other, the same love for each other. So what, like for you, like, why was it important to get married before he passed away?
Yeah, I actually did say that to him because I didn't want him to feel pressured.
Yeah.
But I think it's just something he'd always wanted to do. And I think, and obviously I did as well.
Yeah.
And it's almost like annoying because we knew that was coming soon anyway. And he'd said he wanted to propose, but obviously, you know, how we went into lockdown and stuff, he was like, I wanted it to be special. I wanted to maybe do it while we were away, but obviously all our holidays got cancelled.
Yeah.
And like, it's something we talked about a lot. So I think we just wanted to make sure that we did it. But and I'm glad, but it is just like a shame the way that it happened. Because looking back, it was like an amazing day, and I'm so happy we did it. But it was also like the most stressful like time of our lives.
Right, yeah, I can only imagine. But organising a wedding seems stressful enough, like, let alone with everything else that you guys had going on at that time.
Most of the organisation was done like from the hospital, like literally like a couple of weeks before he was in hospital for a week, and I stayed there with him, and like it was mostly me and Tom's mum. We'd be sat there like planning it in the hospital. It was so weird, and like talking to the nurses about it.
Jesus. Yeah, I can't imagine. I was gutted that I couldn't make it. Obviously, that, like you said, it was all done during COVID time, so it was that was a bit of a pity. But I know that like there was a good turnout, and I saw like the photos and stuff, and everyone was like that showed up and made an effort, which like in the COVID times was hard. And obviously with Tom as well, they had to be extra careful because he was kind of in like a delicate situation. But so does it mean like a lot to you going forward now that you are obviously Emma Swan, like having that surname, does that mean something to you going forward?
Yeah, I'm really happy that I've done that. Like I remember going back to work and I was like, because I was obviously, I was off work from like the whole time he was really poorly, and then I went back after he passed away, and I was like, right, am I going to like be Mrs. Swan now, or am I going to like still be Miss Sowden? Because it just felt like a bit weird. I was like, I don't really know if I want to draw attention to it.
Yeah.
I don't want people like congratulating me. I don't really want like to have, I just didn't know whether to just kind of just slot back in like quietly and just still be Miss Sowden. And I decided to do that because I just didn't feel like having the attention on it.
Yeah. But
then I remember like they were calling me Miss Sowden, and I was like, that's not my name. Like it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So then I was like, actually, I'm going to be Mrs. Swan, and it just felt like nice to acknowledge it, because I thought I'd rather acknowledge it than like, I don't want to like pretend it never happened. So it's nice to like have that name now.
Yeah, to always have that link to what happened.
Yeah.
What does it? We spoke before the podcast, and a lot of people who are listening to this who kind of know of your guys' story from back home, you guys were kind of like the poster boy and girl of like what it is to be like a good relationship. Like I was saying, you guys have been together since you were 15. There was never any like, or at least from the outside looking in, there was never any like real drama. It wasn't like you guys were splitting up every 2 weeks and then getting back together or anything like that. Stable, steady as anything. Always like just look like from the outside looking in. I'm sure you guys would have had some of your problems, and that's like every relationship. But from the outside looking in, kind of like the perfect relationship. And in the generation that we are now with Tinder and everything else, and you get all these just ridiculous situations going on. Like, did you ever kind of realize that or feel that at all? Like, especially like when things were kind of, because I feel as well, it's a weird situation, but when things go like happen like they did with Tom, things get romanticized even more, right? So your relationship kind of gets put on this even like, because almost in a way it's like that Hollywood story of like, oh, you see it in films and stuff. There's one, I can't think of it now, but you see them in films where it's like these guys, they've grown up together and then one of them dies and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
It's like this tragic romance, but like it's made into a film, and like that basically was like your life. And I was like, did you ever cotton on to that, or were you like blissfully unaware?
Our relationship was like really good, but obviously we did like, it wasn't like perfect. Like I don't want, because you know what social media is like, it's not real, and like it's important to know that it was not perfect, but it was probably like as close as it could get, to be fair. And I think the last few years, probably like 90% of any problems we ever had like would always be Tom's illness related, just because tension was so high at a lot of points and the stress levels were so high, like that would cause like 90% of arguments, or it would just, I think sometimes it made us drift, and then sometimes it brought us closer together. Like I can understand how, you know how you see like when a couple goes through a big trauma, like maybe they lose a baby or something and then they end up breaking up, like I can fully see how that would happen because of the stress levels. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does, like, and like there'd be times when Tom would not be feeling great and I didn't always deal with it in the best way. Like I would, you know how I said a bit about me being a bit in denial, like I just would be like not wanting to like hear it, and like that would cause arguments because I just wanted to like think that he was okay, like he wasn't poorly. It's just like so complicated, but I feel like if he wasn't ill, like we wouldn't have had as many arguments, but then maybe we would have argued about like stupid stuff, but obviously because we had like bigger things to worry about, we'd never
the stupid stuff
never
doesn't even come
argue about
into
like
it.
stupid stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Did your like definition of love change as your relationship with Tom evolved, like obviously through childhood, like through your teenage years, through uni, and then obviously through kind of this whole traumatic like period? Because I think like a lot of people, the reason I ask is I think a lot of people our age get sold on like the Hollywood scripts, and they think like love is just like you know, butterflies all the time, and then when you argue you have like steamy hot sex as a makeup, and then like, and that's just basically like what a relationship is. And if it doesn't meet those expectations, then something in this relationship isn't working, and then that's why they end up breaking up with each other. But it's because they kind of had like real unrealistic kind of expectations or definitions of what love is in reality. They're just kind of sold on that Hollywood definition. So I wonder, like, when you started out when you're 15, I'm sure it was that like honeymoon period of like pure butterflies and everything's amazing and this, that and the other. But as things evolved and as you both grew together, did like that definition of love change?
Yeah, like I would say like our relationship got better. Like it just got better, to be fair. And when we lived together, it was just like, you'll know, like it's just like being 100% comfortable, like 100% trust, never really having to worry about cheating or anything like that. But then it's like sticking with each other in the really ugly times, like when like when something like that happens, because it was so hard. Like, I never fully understood how he was feeling, and he never fully understood how I was feeling. And it was like, I think it was like quite a big lesson for us both to try and be able to like empathise with each other about the whole situation. Yeah, but then also like he'd worry about me and I'd worry about him, and it was just like, but I think it made, like the whole thing, what you're saying about definition of love, like it's made me realise what it feels like to, where you would literally do anything for someone, like you'd literally die for them, because that's how I felt like when it was going on, like you'd do anything to make it go away.
Of course.
And that's the frustrating thing, is like you feel helpless because there's like actually nothing you can do.
Do you ever think about in the future? I'm sure, you know, you're still really young, and I'm sure like eventually, it might be 5 years from now, it might be a year from now, it might be tomorrow, but like eventually you'll find someone and you'll have a new partner and a new relationship to move on to. Do you feel, how does the relationship and kind of the standards that was set in terms of like that deep love that you felt with Tom, like how do you think that will influence what you're looking for or what you need out of a relationship going forwards? Because like you're saying there, like you fully understood, you got to a point where like you understood exactly what love meant. None of the airy-fairy nonsense of, you know, oh yeah, it's easy to love someone when you're like looking the nines, going out on a date and everything else, but you know, when you're going through like the trials and tribulations of cancer, it's a lot harder. So when you've got to that level now, so you know what that is and you know how that feels. A lot of people never know that. They can get into their 60s and 70s and they never really understand how that feels, and that's why you see them jumping from relationship to relationship, because they're always looking for that better thing. Do you feel like that's going to like really impact how you look at relationships going forwards, and like and potential boyfriends or partners going forwards?
Yeah, I do. I do think that sometimes. I feel like, how is anything ever going to like live up to that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I think it would be very hard. Like you say, once you've already had something like that, it's I don't. How are you supposed to like find that again?
Yeah.
Because I think it would just. Yeah, like one. Yeah, how does something like live up to that? I don't know.
Yeah. Did you ever speak to Tom about it? Like what your future would look like? Obviously not the day after, don't get me wrong, but you know, in time. Yeah. Like what did he ever tell you? Look, I don't want you to like sit and wallow for the rest of your life. Like I do. Did you ever have that conversation? Yeah,
literally. Like, then that's such a testament to like the kind of person he was. He said it to me so many times, and I'd always shut it down and be like, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. But now I'm really like grateful, because he said it loads of times. He would say like, I'd want you to move on. Like, I'd want you to live your life and things like that. So now I feel like it is nice, because I've had the what's the word? I've like had that from him, so I know that it would be fine. Even, do you know what I mean? I didn't want to like talk about it with him at the time, but it's nice that he has said that to me. Like he said it a lot, and that's just the kind of person that he was. Like thinking about me and wanting like the best for me, for sure. Because I honestly don't know if it was the other way around, if I would be able to like sit there and say that to him, like I'd want you to find someone else. Like I find that really hard. So that it must have been hard for him to say that.
I think most of us would find it hard to say that, but like you said, like when you fully love someone like completely, then and like you were saying before, you know, you worry about them even in your own worst times. I mean, he's going through terminal cancer, and like he's worrying about like what your future will look like and how you're feeling and how you're going to get over this and so on and so forth. And that's that to me is like the definition of like true love, is that he is literally in the worst situation a human can be, and he's not even thinking about himself. He's like worried about how you're going to get through this, and so on. And that must be nice though, to feel like, I don't want to say permission, but for want of a better word, I will use that. Like, he gave you that permission so that you can, like, whenever it is that you do move on and you find a new partner, you can do that guilt-free and not wonder, oh, shit, am I, like, disrespecting Tom's honour or the relationship that we had, and so on.
I feel like I have a bit of an extra, like, almost like standard as well, because if I do meet someone else, I'll be thinking if he would like them.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like I'd definitely feel guilty. I would never like want to let someone treat me like shit, because he would be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, because he'll be like looking down on you, being like, I know I told you that you could move on with someone, but not with this dickhead. Like,
I think he actually said at one point, like, just make sure they're not a dickhead.
Yeah, well, that's sound advice, to be fair. Definitely sound advice. I want to ask, well, actually, this is Jim's question. He says, does love transcend the physical body? And obviously, when things would have got really dire the last maybe months or weeks of the relationship, like, you know, the intimate part of the relationship, I'm sure, was basically either hard to come by or non-existent. But do you feel like that love transcended that physical body, and that you were able to, like, it didn't affect your relationship? Because again, a lot of people our age, that's like the utmost thing. It's the number one thing. And like, if that doesn't go well, or they're not feeling it or whatever, they can very often kind of throw a relationship away for the physical part of it not kind of working 100% as they hoped.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the last like few months, I think it was just different. Like, I think love was shown in like different ways. Like I was basically, not just me, but obviously he lived with me, so most of my time was spent looking after him. So like, he couldn't move like one half of his body,
right?
So I would be like helping him get dressed, or helping him do everything. I was helping him do it, and I feel like that's like kind of an act of love.
Yeah.
And then he'd like, obviously it's difficult for him. He couldn't really communicate either. He was struggling to speak properly because of where his tumour was, but he would find ways of like saying that he loved me or thanking me and things like that. And he'd still like hug people with one arm. And then also, I think as well, like when he couldn't speak properly, like being able to know what he was saying or needed was, I feel like that was love as well. Like, do you know what I mean?
That
like
telepathic understanding.
Being able to still communicate. Like, it was hard at times. Like, I didn't always know, and he would get frustrated, and I completely understand that, because it must have been awful. But I obviously tried my best, and a lot of the time, I think I was able to understand like what he needed or what he was trying to say. And I think that is love as well, like being able to communicate in a different way.
Yeah.
I guess it's just knowing somebody that well, and you know like the physical cues and everything.
Yeah, I always think a good like a good test of if you're like truly like know someone and truly comfortable with them is if you can like share silences. And obviously, I don't mean it in Tom's way. You know, that's awful that like he couldn't speak at times, whatever. But what I mean is that you see people where they only feel comfortable when they're complete. There's always conversation. There's always like someone speaking. But whenever there's like a bit of silence, they feel awkward, and they feel like that silence has to be filled. And I realised quite a while ago, a couple of years ago, that like sometimes Louisa and I would like go for a date. It's not like we'd never talk, but like we'd go for a date, and there might be like 2 or 3 minutes where. Do you know what I mean? We're real comfortable in each other's company, but there hasn't been a word spoken, and it kind of tripped me out at the first few times. I was like, wait, are we like losing the spark here? Like, what the fuck's happening? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then I had to understand, like, oh no, it's just that you're like so comfortable with this person that you don't need to fill it constantly with words. So, and like you said, having that understanding where like a simple eyebrow raise or like a look can like let you know exactly how that person's feeling or what they're thinking.
That's something I really miss as well, like, because obviously we lived together for like, I don't know, like 2.5 years, and so it was like constant company. Yeah. So then obviously it's like has been really lonely with him gone. But it's like I'm not short of company. Like I've got family, I've got so many friends. Like I've had people over, but it's not the same kind of company. Because you know when somebody's come round, you do feel like you have to kind of host, and you do want to fill the silence. And when they leave, it's like you feel a bit tired, like, but I just would miss like having the company and like not really talking, just doing your own thing, but somebody else is there. Because I feel like I'm just you're not really 100% that comfortable with anyone else. Like I am like that with family, but you know what I mean? It's just 100%. A different type of comfort. Yeah,
100%. That being able to do your own thing, but just knowing that like that person is there, but he might be watching Nottingham Forest while you're watching, you know, RuPaul's Drag Race or whatever. But like the fact is that like you're both still there. Whereas with obviously, like you said, when someone comes around, you can be like, oh, just
you don't
sit
want to be
there
rude.
and I'm just gonna Netflix while just make your own tea. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously not. But for sure. Wait, I want to ask a question. When you when obviously the wedding was getting planned and stuff, and you know, it was obvious that you're now going to be a wife. How did you tally? Obviously, that must have come with huge excitement and like pride and everything else. But then, how did you tally that with? Because you were in a unique situation whereby you're getting married, but you know that like your husband is going to pass away fairly soon. Like most people get married, and the expectation is we'll get a happily ever after type vibes, and then it's like, well, we know one of us is eventually going to die, but we don't know when that is. Hopefully it's when we're in our late 80s or 90s type thing. With you, it's like, I'm getting married, and I know that I'm going to be a wife, but in the short term, but also in the short to medium term, I'm now going to be a widow. Like, how did you tally those kind of two realities?
I think we still did want to have like hope, because at the time we were still looking at what other treatments he could try and just looking for literally anything that would give like any amount of time. But I think at the same time, deep down, I knew it was like pretty likely that he would die quite soon. But I'm trying to think back to it. Like, I know it sounds so weird, but I do think it was such a traumatic time. I don't really actually remember it that well.
No, that's completely normal. We spoke to someone like a trauma expert, and that's like really normal. Where basically your brain actually does it to protect you. Like your brain cuts stuff out that's so traumatic to protect you from it. That's
probably why, because it was such a nice day, and I remember it being a good day. But like you said about that, knowing like what's probably going to happen, like it was also like quite a traumatic day at the same time, and it's just like it was just like a massive like whirlwind. But I think we just wanted to like focus on it being happy. It was just like it was like happy and like a bit I don't know. I was just all over the place really, but also we didn't have that much time to think about it because of how quickly we had to sort it, and it was just like there wasn't much time to like dwell on things.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes 100% sense. Completely. How do you feel that your relationship with Tom has changed, or I don't really know how to put it, but you know, now that he's obviously not with you, physically speaking, but maybe spiritually, you might feel some connection still. I don't know how spiritual you are or whether you feel that way, but yeah, do you feel like, are you one of those people that are, now that he's not in the living realm, that's it, the relationship's completely over, or do you kind of still feel like even though physically he's not there and you can't have a conversation with him sat on the sofa, but do you still feel like there is a level of connection there, and you still feel like he is with you in some way?
Yeah. That's such a hard question, because I go back and forth all the time. Like, I've always been that kind of person that thinks like people are still with us, and they'll hear you, and like they'll be there with you. And I think I do think that, but sometimes I actually feel like sometimes I feel like I go the other way and start thinking like, no, you're just, when you're gone, you're gone. And I think that's a bit of a coping mechanism, because it is kind of it's a weird one. Like, I do want him to still be around, but if I'm like thinking that he's like somewhere else, I just like want to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I just think like he's gone, then I'm not like missing out on, like, I don't know, like potentially being with him.
Yeah, no, that makes, and yeah, 100%. And surely must make it easier in your own mind the even thought of potentially moving on. Like, if you have it in your head like black and white, like, no, Tom's gone, then that, even though Tom had the conversations with you like we mentioned before, like, it makes it easier. Whereas if you kind of feel like you are still connected, then that must still hurt, because obviously you're still like in love with him. Of course you are.
Yeah, it is weird. And like, I do still feel connected. I think I always will. Like, I'll never not like love him.
Yeah.
So I think it's so weird, but I can't even imagine it the other way around. Like, I couldn't imagine being with someone who's had a wife who's died, because you will be with that person, but you know that they still love someone else.
Yeah.
And like, you just have to kind of accept that.
Yeah.
And like, I'll never like stop talking about him or stop thinking about him. So if I did end up with someone else, like, they'd have to understand that. Like, it wouldn't just be like forgotten about, because if I'm with someone else, like,
yeah, it's not like he's an ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
I think,
but it's not. It's obviously not like you're with two people. But,
no.
and like, accepting the fact that like, it's kind of awkward, because it's like, well, if Tom was still here, like, I'd be with him. So
yeah.
It's kind of a bit. I
think I heard someone talking about love, and they had kids, and before that they had kids, and their friend was telling them, "Oh, just wait, man, it's such a trip. Like, it makes you into a different person. Like, you won't believe the change that happens when you have a kid. It's unbelievable, yada, yada, yada." And then the guy said that when he had a child, he realised that what it does is it expands the capacity that you have for love. And I think you can kind of extrapolate that to not only having children, but I think you can extrapolate that to having, like, true love, whereby if you obviously loved Tom, and that love is, I feel like it expands your capacity as Emma to love people. Like, it makes your heart bigger in a sense. So then if you were then to, have a partner in the future, it's not as if those loves, let's call this other person Harry, just to make it easy. It's not as if your love for Harry is then competing with the love for Tom. They just live side by side. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you have, we don't have kids, but I know you have dogs, and I have a dog. It's like, if you had another dog, it doesn't now mean that you love the new dog more than the old dog. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They live together, but and it's just like, but it is like you said, you have to, that other person has to respect that fact and make it like, they can't be asking questions or like hoping that eventually you love them more or whatever the case may be, because that's not really going to ever happen. That's an odd one. Do you ever think, like, do your friends, like your girlfriends and stuff, do they like, are you kind of the person that they come to with like all these relationship like woes, and any time like one of their mates might be messing around, like, or their partner or whatever, like, are you the person like, let's go and talk to Emma, she'll fucking know what to tell us, she's like the oracle?
I don't think so, because I don't mean this in like condescending way, but mine and Tom's relationship from the day he was diagnosed, like, it was really different. Like, we just had different issues to most of my friends and their partners. Like, we were dealing with things like, should we have a child, or should we try and live normally, or what type of chemo should he have, or like, should we like research this drug, or should we just try and get on with our lives, and like, or, you know, should he go into hospital because this is wrong, and like, it was like just different problems. And then also like obviously, because a lot of my friends are in relationships, but the ones who aren't, they would need advice about things like fuck boys, and like they're being messed around, and like they won't come to me for that because I have no experience in that, because I've had a boyfriend since I was 15. So
the complete opposite of a fuck boy, absolute gentleman. How I'm sure you're still kind of in it to some extent, but how did you deal with the process of grief? And did the process start somewhat before he actually ever passed away? Like, knowing that he was, did that actually mean that the grief started beforehand, or how did that whole process? Yeah,
it did. My counsellor said at the very beginning when he was diagnosed, she said she could see me going through all the stages then.
Right.
But I don't think I was like grieving him. I think I was just grieving like everything that we had before and everything that I thought we was going to have in the future.
Yeah.
And then when he got quite a bit better, but then when he got poorly again, I think I started it again. It's like, I was a bit different that time. I tried to be positive at the beginning, and I did my denial thing again. Yeah. Because I remember him saying that his like leg felt like it was like heavier than the other one, and I was like, you're just paranoid. But actually, like, there was something wrong with it. Yeah. But I think, when he got really poorly, like, you do when I was there like 24/7, so I was seeing literally everything. I was seeing him like in pain. The pain was the worst, because, you know, when somebody's in pain, like, you would do anything to just stop it. So I think I did get to a point where I accepted, like, I think he is going to die, and I always thought, like, I will never like be that person that like gives up. And I don't think I gave up, but when you've watched someone become exactly how they didn't want to be, like completely lost all independence, constantly in pain, can't speak, can't hardly move, like, you do get to a point where you want them to be like free of it. Like, you just want it to stop. So, and like, I didn't want to keep being like, oh yeah, he's going to get better, because it was like just becoming really clear, like he was sleeping like 20 hours a day. So I think my priorities just changed a little bit, and I was just like, it needs to be like as peaceful as it can be, and like as comfortable as it can be.
Right.
So I think what you start the process then when you realise, but not everybody, I don't think that happened with everybody, like, not everybody accepts it.
No.
Because they might go home and like not see all of it, and they might think, well, maybe he will get better. But I do think I started grieving a bit before, which I think people don't realise. So
it's like you said, you don't have to necessarily grieve the person. You can grieve, like you said, future hopes, and grieve past experiences, like, you know, what you were used to before this shit show of a diagnosis came. Like, you were used to like this amazing relationship, and it's normal, I think, to grieve that, even if Tom was alive or not alive. And, you know, and your future hopes. You've grown up together, probably talking about, oh, we're going to move here, we're going to have a kid here, and Tom's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to take them to Nottingham Forest, and you're like, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, you would have had those conversations, of course you would have. So it's normal to grieve the fact that you no longer can have all of those plans that you would have normally been able to.
Yeah.
Do you think it's changed? You kind of mentioned it before, how you said you used to be a person who planned all the time, and now you just take it every day as it comes. Has it changed your outlook on life to some extent? Has it made you want to kind of grab it by the horns and like really just make the most out of it? Because like you said, you don't know what's going to come around the corner. Or has it made, and how has your relationship with death as well? How has that changed?
Yeah, it's made me a little bit like more carefree in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't care about many things anymore, because I just feel like not long after Tom died, like a few months later, I was like made redundant from my job.
Right.
But I was just like, this is shit, but like worse things have happened.
Yeah.
And like I'll find something else, whereas before that would have really stressed me out.
Yeah.
So I feel like obviously it's not good to like not care about anything, but it's kind of, it is good to not stress about the things that don't really matter. Like I don't get stressed about work and things, because I just like, I've been through worse, like worse things can happen. What was the other thing?
And then the other question was, has it changed your relationship with death? Just because,
Oh yeah,
I feel like a lot of us, obviously we all know that eventually some point in our lives it will come to an end, or some point in the lives of our loved one, be that parents, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, eventually we will lose loved ones and we will die ourselves. But not many of us have, especially like at a young age, have like a real close relationship where, like you said, you're there on a daily basis, like you're seeing like it happen daily, gradually. Does that make you... Did it kind of alleviate any fears that you have towards death? Does it make you accept it easier? Like, I don't know, has it changed like your relationship with the way you see it?
I don't know, like I feel like if anything it might be worse, because I've spent a lot of time thinking like what happens when you die, like where is he,
Mm-hmm.
like what's happened. And then also I've spent a lot of time thinking like, why has he died and I'm still here? Like, how's that fair? Like, who decides that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And then sometimes I just randomly think like, because obviously Tom was like the person closest to me, so it was really hard like losing the one person who'd probably like console you the most if anything goes wrong.
Right.
So I've like lent on other people a lot, like my mum and dad, but then it makes me think like, oh my god, imagine if I like lost one of that. I think it makes me like even more scared.
Yeah.
And also like watching somebody slowly die, like I just didn't realise like how actually like brutal that is. And like everyone says it's peaceful, and it was in the end, but I feel like for a few days it was really not peaceful.
Yeah.
Like it was horrendous.
Yeah.
It's just made me realise like how cruel it can be.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I have like a little, not a confession so to speak, but I was talking to Jim about like Tom and you and so on, and this was after Tom passed away, and I was like, I never knew Emma that well. I'm going to talk about you as if you weren't here, but I never knew Emma that well. She was just always Tom's girlfriend, but we didn't like go to the same school because you obviously went to the girls' school and whatever else. And I was like, I never really knew her that well, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I do want to check up on her and like check in on her and, you know, just see how she's doing and so forth. But I always felt, and I'm sure a lot of people who probably listen to this felt the same way, that I don't want to kind of like bug her. And I'm sure she has enough friends, and she obviously has her parents and Tom's family as well, who are there to, you know, ask the questions, how are you doing, and be there for you. but yeah, there was a part of me that was like, oh, I just wish I wanted to text you or like whatever, or say, hey, look, I'm sure you have a million other people who you'd rather talk to than me, but just to let you know that like I am thinking of you and I hope you're still doing well, because I know that like from doing this podcast and from speaking to people, like the grief isn't like a 2-month thing and then all of a sudden you're over it and then you can just like go on your merry way. I know it takes sometimes a lifetime. But yeah, I wondered, like, for anyone who was listening, who maybe was in the same predicament that I was in, who doesn't get to have this opportunity to speak to you and, you know, record or have an hour-long conversation, like, would you have appreciated them reaching out to you, or would you have preferred them to kind of, like, let you deal with it the way that you want to deal with it?
No, I should have said, really, like, I do feel like out of a lot of people, like especially like Tom's friends, I feel like you did check in on me a lot, and I never actually told you, but I am really grateful for that. It was like, it felt really nice to have people like asking how I am, especially like quite a lot of people did send me a message, and I always thought that was just really nice. But it meant a lot as well when people would still kind of like check in like a few months later and stuff, not just like straight after. But obviously everyone's different. Like some people might just want to like shy away and not really deal with messages. But I just think like I just found anyone messaging, I just thought it was really nice. And like if I would say just it's probably better to say something than, even if you think like you might going to say the wrong thing, it's probably better to just say something if you feel like you want to. And if the person doesn't want to deal with it, like they just won't reply, like just, I mean, you could even just say like you don't have to reply.
Yeah.
But I always just thought it's really nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that, like, I don't know, I guess it's just nice to know that people are thinking of you in a weird way.
No, of course. Yeah, I think that's definitely, like, this podcast has definitely brought that. I mean, last week we released a podcast with a woman called Rhian Mannings, and she like lost her son and her husband in like the same week. And like we were talking about it, and like you get to like, you know, I've lost my grandparents and stuff, but not quite the same, you know, it's not quite as traumatic, it's more expected. And you get to understand that, like, yeah, you have those people, right, who text you straight after an event happens, whatever that event may be, a breakup or whatever. But the kind of ramifications of those events last a lot longer than like a week or whatever later.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I never wanted to be the person who would say, oh, I'm here for you if you ever need anything, yada, yada, yada. And then that would be it. I'd ghost. And then you'd literally just never hear from me ever again, because I understand that things take a long time. And again, it can take a lifetime. And it's important to know that, like, when someone said that, oh, like, I'm here if you want to talk to me, if you want to just whatever, that they actually mean that. And I think sometimes the person who's grieving needs that reminder, you know, because you might feel guilty about, like, even if I've told you, hey, Emma, I know you've got a million friends who are in front of me and everything else, but if you ever wanted to talk to me about anything, just, you know, text me or pick up the phone or whatever. If I said that on August the 8th, but then you feel really bad on November the 20th and you actually go, hey, you know what, I actually kind of would like to talk to Seb because my other friends are too close to me about this subject or whatever, but you might feel guilty about reaching out to me because it's been 3 months since I sent you that text, you know what I mean? So then I feel like that's important to just let that person know.
It is good to ask, because sometimes you don't realise you like need to talk to someone until they like ask how you are.
Yeah.
And what you said about like people being too close is true as well, because obviously I have lent on my mum a lot and I've lent on Tom's mum a lot, but I don't like to do that too much because I don't want to like upset them.
Yeah.
Because I know like me being hurt is going to like hurt my mum, because it's the same, like that's
of course
what it's like, you know, with your children, and it's same with Tom's mum. And so sometimes it is, that's what always why I like having a counsellor is nice, but also like it is quite nice sometimes I like speaking to people who didn't even know Tom, because I know they're not really going to be like emotionally attached to it, and I can just completely like say how I feel and I'm not going to like upset them.
Yeah. No, it's important.
And what you said about grief not being like a 2-month thing is so true as well. And I think I've realised that because I just like, I think what I do is I just try to like be busy and not think about it too much. So like going back to work for me was really helpful.
Yeah.
But then it's like times like now when I have a bit of time off,
Yeah.
I just feel like literally the same as I did before. Like because I'm not busy, I have the time to think about it again, and it makes me realise like it literally doesn't go away. Like you just think about it less, I suppose, and you get busy with life. But like when you do feel it, it feels exactly the same. Like it just doesn't stop.
Yeah, I think like maybe one of the best ways to, I don't know, I don't want to say the best way, but one of the ways that I look at it is that you don't move on from it or get over it, as like a lot of people say, but like you just learn to live with it a bit better, you know?
Yeah.
Like you learn to, like you said, get on with your daily chores and get on with your job, and, you know, meet your friends out and not being like a crying mess 3 years down the line. That doesn't mean that 3 years down the line you might not cry, because you might do, like something might just like a smell or a plate of food or an image or whatever that reminds you of Tom. Could like just trigger it, and you might have a little cry there and then. But what I mean is that like you on a normal day-to-day basis, you can kind of deal with it a bit better. But it doesn't mean you've got over it. I think it just means that you've learned to live with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that you came on and I got to have this conversation with you. I know a lot of people kind of looking forward to hearing, no pressure, but we're looking forward to listening to this one, because I think your story, I mean, it is a Hollywood story in some ways, like, I don't want to trivialize it, but I think it does, you know, it captures people because they see how much you guys loved each other. And yeah, and I know that a lot of people wanted to kind of hear how you were getting on with it and how you kind of dealt with that whole situation, because like you said, you were the one person who saw it on a day-to-day basis more than anyone else. So you had a kind of a unique position there. Obviously not one that you would have wanted, but the cards we get dealt, I guess. Is there anything else that you wanted to say that I maybe didn't ask? Any questions that allowed you to say something, or any points that you wanted to make?
I don't know. I think maybe just like, I probably just want to mention like Tom's parents and family, because I was like looking after him on a daily basis, but they all like helped massively. Like his mum and dad were around every single day. Like obviously, like I said about my mum, the love from my mum for me, like when I'm hurting, she's hurting, like they would have felt exactly the same with having to watch Tom be like that. And Tom's auntie would go home and like literally spend hours like on the internet trying to look for like any kind of treatment or any kind of drug that he could try, and his gran and granddad would do that as well. So I don't know, just like give them a mention. Yeah,
for sure. No, for sure, of course. All right, Emma. Well, I really appreciate it, and thanks so much for coming on. It's been well worth the wait.
Thank you for asking me.
No worries.
Yeah.
1 second. So we just stay there and call. Wait 1 second, okay? I'm just gonna press stop.